The dessert plates were still warm in my hands when my son leaned in and whispered, "Since everyone's here, go and withdraw the money." I froze. The apple pie nearly slipped from my grip. "What?" I managed to say, but David had already pulled back, his face blank, like he'd just asked me to pass the salt. Around the table, everyone kept eating. My daughter Emily pushed her fork through her slice. My sister Ruth sipped her wine. Karen, David's wife, smiled at me over the rim of her glass, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something I didn't, or thought she did. "Mom, sit down," David said, louder now. "We need to talk." "I'm serving dessert," I said, my voice shaking. "Can't this wait?" "No." He stood up, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. The sound cut through the room like a knife. "It can't." Everyone stopped eating. Emily set down her fork. Ruth put down her glass. Even my 10-year-old granddaughter Lily, sitting at the end of the table with her coloring book, looked up. "David, what's going on?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. My stomach dropped before I even saw what it was. He unfolded it slowly, deliberately, and placed it on the table between the casserole dishes and the wine bottle. It was a bank statement. My bank statement. "Where did you get that?" I whispered. "Does it matter?" Karen said, her voice sharp. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, her eyes locked on mine. "Mom, we know about the $127,000, and we need to talk about where it's really going." The room tilted. I gripped the back of my chair to steady myself. "You went through my mail?" I said, my voice rising. "You! How dare you!" "We're worried about you," Emily cut in, her voice softer but no less pointed. She reached across the table like she wanted to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "Mom, you've been acting weird for months. Secretive. Always at the bank. Always on your phone." "I'm allowed to have a bank account," I snapped. "Not when you're being scammed," David said. The word hit me like a slap. "Scammed?" "Yes." He pointed at the statement. "You've withdrawn over $40,000 in cash in the last 6 months. You won't tell us why. You won't tell us where it's going." He paused, his jaw tight. "So yeah, Mom, we think someone's taking advantage of you." I stared at him, at all of them. My son, my daughter, my sister, all of them looking at me like I was some fragile, confused old woman who couldn't be trusted with her own money. "This is ridiculous," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not being scammed." "Then where's the money going?" Karen demanded. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Because how could I explain? How could I tell them the truth when the truth would destroy everything? "It's none of your business," I finally said. "It is our business," David shot back. "That's Dad's life insurance money. He left it to you to take care of yourself, not to throw away on." "On what?" I said, my voice cold now. "Say it, David. What do you think I'm spending it on?" He hesitated, looked at Karen. She nodded, like she was giving him permission. "We think it's a romance scam," he said quietly. "Some guy online, promising you things, asking for money." Emily gasped. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A sharp, bitter laugh that made everyone flinch. "You think I'm in love with some scammer?" I said. "You think I'm that pathetic?" "We didn't say pathetic," Emily started, but I cut her off. "That's what you meant." "Mom, please," David said, his voice softening. "Just tell us what's going on. We're trying to help." "Help?" I repeated. "You break into my private records, ambush me in my own home, accuse me of being an idiot, and you call that help?" "We wouldn't have to do this if you'd just been honest with us," Karen snapped. I stared at her perfectly pressed blouse, her manicured nails, her face full of fake concern, and I realized something. This wasn't about helping me. This was about control. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" David said. I said, "Get out." My voice was steady now, cold. "All of you, get out of my house." "Mom." Now. No one moved. And then Ruth stood up. She folded her napkin, placed it on the table, and looked at me with something I couldn't quite read. Pity? Disappointment? "If you won't tell us what's happening," she said softly, "then we have no choice." "No choice about what?" I said. David pulled another paper from his pocket. This one was thicker, official looking. "We're filing for financial guardianship," he said, "tomorrow morning." The room spun. "You what?" "We're sorry," Emily said, tears in her eyes, "but we can't just stand by and watch you ruin yourself." I looked at the paper in David's hand, at the bank statement on the table, at my family, my own children staring at me like I was a stranger. And then Karen leaned forward, her voice low and venomous. "Mom, we know about the $127,000, she said again, "and we need to talk about where it's really going. You've been following me?" My voice cracked as I stared at Karen's phone lying face up on the table. The photo was grainy but unmistakable me, standing at the bank counter 3 days ago, envelope in hand. "We had to," Karen said, no apology in her voice. "You left us no choice." "No choice?" I grabbed the phone, my hands shaking. "You followed me? Like some kind of stalker?" "Mom, please," Emily said, wiping her eyes. "We're scared for you." "Scared?" I threw the phone back at Karen. It skidded across the table, nearly knocking over Ruth's wine glass. "You're treating me like a criminal." "Because you're acting like one," David shouted. The words hung in the air like smoke. Even he looked surprised he'd said them. I sat down slowly, my legs suddenly too weak to hold me. "Get out," I whispered. "Not until you explain," Karen said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder, a thick one. She opened it with the precision of a lawyer presenting evidence, and my stomach turned. Inside were printed pages, bank statements, screenshots, receipts. $42,000, she said, sliding the first page toward me. "Withdrawn in cash over 6 months. That's the first red flag." "I don't have to explain my finances to you," I said. "You do when you're clearly being manipulated." She slid another page across. "You've also been making calls to a number in Oregon, 18 times in the last month." My blood ran cold. "How did you—" "Your phone bill," she said simply. "David's still listed as the secondary account holder. Remember?" I'd forgotten. After my husband died, David had helped me set up the new plan. I never thought to take his name off. "You had no right," I said. "We have every right when you're throwing away Dad's money." David's voice cracked. "Do you know how hard he worked for that? How many years he put into that insurance policy?" "Don't you dare use your father against me," I hissed. "Then tell us the truth," Emily cried. She was full-on sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Mom, please. Is it a man? Is someone promising to marry you or take care of you?" "No." "Then what?" Karen demanded. She slid another page across. This one made my heart stop. It was a screenshot. From my computer. My email. "You hacked my computer?" "Your password is your wedding anniversary," Karen said flatly. It wasn't hard. I stared at the email. It was from a medical billing office in Oregon. The subject line read, "Payment plan update. Account #783N2." "A medical billing office?" Ruth spoke for the first time, her voice thin. "Are you sick?" "No," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Then who is?" Emily asked. I said nothing. Karen leaned forward. "Is this some kind of scam charity? One of those fake cancer funds that prey on widows?" "It's not a scam." "Then what is it?" David slammed his hand on the table. The dishes rattled. Lily jumped in her seat, and Emily quickly ushered her out of the room. "Tell us," David said, his voice low and dangerous. "Right now." I looked around the table. At David, red-faced and furious. At Karen, cold and calculating. At Emily, returning from the hallway, her eyes puffy and desperate. At Ruth, who wouldn't even meet my gaze. My family. My trap. "You want to know where the money's going?" I said quietly. "Yes," they said in unison. I stood up slowly and walked to the kitchen. They watched me like I might bolt for the door. I opened the drawer by the sink, the one where I kept the takeout menus and batteries and rubber bands, and pulled out a folder of my own. I'd been keeping it there for weeks, just in case. I walked back to the table and dropped it in front of David. It landed with a heavy thud. "Open it," I said. He did. Inside were medical records, lab results, doctor's notes. All of them stamped with the same name at the top, Lily Chen, Dobb. The 15th of March, 2015. David's face went white. "What is this?" he whispered. "Your daughter's medical file," I said. "The real one, not the version you and Karen have been showing me." Emily grabbed the folder and started flipping through it. Her hands were shaking. "Mom, what are you talking about?" David said. "Lily's sick," I said simply. "She has been for 8 months, a rare autoimmune condition. The kind that needs experimental treatment because the standard options aren't working." "We know that," Karen said, but her voice had lost its edge. "We've been managing it." "Managing?" I laughed, a bitter sound. "Is that what you call it?" I pulled out another paper from the folder. This one was a letter. From the treatment center in Oregon. "They have a clinical trial," I said. 92% success rate. It could save her life. But your insurance won't cover it because it's experimental." "We know," David said quietly. "The doctors told us." "And you said no." Silence. "You told them you couldn't afford it," I continued, my voice shaking now. "You told them you'd handle it another way. But there is no other way, David. And you knew that." "Mom," Emily started, but I held up my hand. "I found out by accident," I said. 3 months ago. I called the doctor's office to ask about Lily's appointment, and they told me the trial had been canceled. Canceled. Not postponed, not rescheduled. Canceled. "We were going to figure something out," Karen said, but she wouldn't look at me. "You've had 8 months," I shouted. 8 months while Lily's been getting sicker, while her counts have been dropping, while she's been in pain and you've been figuring it out? David's jaw tightened. "The treatment costs $200,000. We don't have that kind of money." "But I do." The words landed like a bomb. "That's where the money's been going," I said. "Every withdrawal, every call to Oregon. I've been paying for Lily's treatment myself." Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Ruth finally looked up, her face pale. "You've been paying for it?" David said slowly. "Without telling us?" "You didn't leave me a choice," I said. "You gave up on her. You decided she wasn't worth saving, so I had to." "We didn't give up on her," David roared. He stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. "We were protecting her." "From what?" "From false hope." Karen's voice was shrill now. "From being poked and prodded and experimented on like a lab rat. The trial isn't FDA approved, it could kill her." "Doing nothing will kill her," I said coldly. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." I pulled out the last paper, a prognosis report. "Without treatment, she has 6 months, maybe less. The doctors told you that, didn't they?" David's face crumpled. "We were trying to give her a normal life, for as long as she has left." "She deserves more than 6 months," I said, my voice breaking. "She deserves a chance." "And you were going to give her that chance behind our backs?" Karen stood now too, her face twisted with rage. "You were going to take our daughter, our child, and make medical decisions without us?" "Someone had to." David slammed his hand on the table again. This time, his palm landed directly on my bank statement. "If you don't stop this right now," he said, his voice deadly quiet, "if you don't tell us you'll stop sending money, stop making calls, stop interfering with our family, we're filing for financial guardianship tomorrow morning." I stared at him. At my son. The boy I'd raised. The man I thought I knew. "That's your choice?" I whispered. "Guardianship? Over your own daughter's life?" "Our choice is protecting our family," Karen said. "From everyone, including you. You canceled the appointments." The words came out flat, emotionless. But inside, I was screaming. Karen's face went chalk white. David turned to look at her, confusion flickering across his features. "What is she talking about?" he asked. Karen's mouth opened, then closed. She looked like a fish drowning in air. "The appointments," I repeated, louder now. I pulled another paper from my folder, one I'd been saving, one I'd hoped I'd never have to use. The ones at the treatment center. The intake consultation, the pre-screening, the baseline testing. I slid the paper across to David. It was an email chain between Karen and Dr. Chen at the Oregon facility. "Read it," I said. David picked it up with shaking hands. His eyes moved across the screen. I watched his face change from confusion to disbelief to something darker. "You told them we weren't interested?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Karen, you told them to close Lily's file?" Karen started, but David cut her off. "This is dated 4 months ago." He looked up at her, his face twisted. "You told me the center rejected her application. You said they didn't have space." "I was protecting her," Karen said, her voice rising. "Protecting us. By lying to me?" David stood up so fast his chair crashed to the floor. "By making decisions about my daughter without telling me?" "Our daughter," Karen snapped. "And yes, I made the decision because you were too emotional to see clearly." "Too emotional?" David's voice cracked. "She's dying, Karen. She's living." Karen screamed back. "She's been to school, she's been playing, she's been happy, and you wanted to drag her across the country to pump her full of experimental drugs that might kill her anyway. At least she'd have a chance." "A chance at what? Dying in a hospital bed instead of her own room? Being a guinea pig for some research study? I read the consent forms, David. I read what they'd do to her. The biopsies, the infusions, the side effects. I read them too," I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. I reached into my folder and pulled out another stack of papers. Thicker this time, held together with a binder clip. "These are the consent forms," I said. "The treatment protocols, the risk assessments, the success rates." I dropped them on the table. "I've read every single page, multiple times." "Mom," Emily started, but I kept going. "I've also spoken to 3 families whose children completed the trial. 2 of them are in full remission. The 3rd is stable and improving." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "I have their numbers. You can call them yourself." David stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "You did all this?" he whispered. "Without telling us?" "You didn't leave me a choice." I looked at Karen. "She made sure of that." "How did you even know?" Karen demanded. "How did you find out about the appointments?" "I called the center," I said simply. 3 months ago. I wanted to ask about visiting hours, about where to stay, about how long the treatment would take. And Dr. Chen told me there was no active file for Lily, that the parents you had declined to proceed." Karen's hands clenched into fists. "You had no right." "I had every right. I'm her grandmother." "You're not her mother." The words echoed through the dining room. Even Ruth flinched. "No," I said softly. "I'm not. But I'm the only one fighting for her life." Emily was crying again, silent tears streaming down her face. She picked up one of the consent forms and started reading it, her lips moving soundlessly. "The side effects," she whispered. "Mom, some of these are really bad." "I know. Organ damage, neurological issues, potential infertility." "I know," I said again. "But the alternative is death. And that's a pretty permanent side effect, too." "You don't understand," Karen said, her voice breaking now. "You don't know what it's like to watch your child suffer, to hold her while she's screaming from pain. To see her lose weight, lose her hair, lose her childhood." "You're right," I said. "I don't know what that's like, but I know what it's like to lose a child." Everyone froze. "You remember your brother?" I looked at David, my voice steady now. "Your older brother, Thomas." David's face went pale. "Mom, don't—" "He was 6 when he got sick," I continued. "Leukemia. Back then the treatments were brutal, experimental. The doctors said he had a 30% chance of survival." I swallowed hard. "Your father wanted to try anyway." I said no. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. "I said no," I repeated, "because I was scared. Because I wanted to protect him from suffering, because I thought 6 months of happiness was better than a year of hell." "Mom, please stop," Emily whispered. "He died 4 months later," I said. "In his sleep, peacefully," everyone said. "Like that made it better." I looked at Karen. "And I've spent 37 years wondering if I made the right choice. If those extra months of normal life were worth watching my son die. If I should have fought harder, tried more, given him a chance. David's eyes were red now, brimming with tears he wouldn't let fall. "You never told us," he said hoarsely. We didn't know you felt." "Because I didn't want you to carry my regret," I said. "But I won't let you make the same mistake." Karen shook her head, backing away from the table. "This is different. Thomas didn't have a choice about his illness, but we have a choice about how Lily spends her last." "She's not dying on my watch," I said, my voice like steel. "She's not yours to save," Karen screamed. "Then whose is she?" I shot back. "Yours? Because you've decided to give up? David's? Because he doesn't even know what you've been doing behind his back?" David was staring at Karen now, and the look on his face was something I'd never seen before. Betrayal, raw and bleeding. "You told me the center rejected her," he said slowly. "You showed me an email. A rejection letter." Karen's silence was answer enough. "You faked it," he whispered. "You faked a rejection letter from the hospital." "I did what I had to do." Karen's voice was shrill now, desperate. "You would have bankrupted us trying to save her. You would have sold the house, emptied our retirement, destroyed our lives for a maybe. She's my daughter." The words rang out like a gunshot. David grabbed the papers from the table, the medical records, the consent forms, the email chains, and held them up like evidence at a trial. "All this time," he said, his voice shaking, "all this time I thought we were on the same page, that we were making decisions together, that we agreed it was hopeless." "It is hopeless," Karen said, but there was no conviction left in her voice. "No," David shook his head. "What's hopeless is staying married to someone who lies to me about our dying child." Emily gasped. Ruth's hand flew to her chest. Karen's face crumpled. "David, please." "Get out," he said quietly. "What?" "Get out of this house. Now." "David, you can't." "Get out!" He threw the papers at her. They scattered across the table, across the floor, white sheets falling like snow. "Get out before I say something I can't take back." Karen stood frozen for a moment, her face a mask of shock and fury. Then she grabbed her purse and ran. The front door slammed so hard the windows rattled. The silence that followed was deafening. David sank into his chair, his head in his hands. Emily was still crying. Ruth finally stood up and walked to the kitchen, probably to pour herself something stronger than wine. And I sat there, holding the one paper I hadn't shown them yet. The receipt? For the first payment to the treatment center. Dated 2 weeks ago. "Mom," David said, his voice muffled by his hands. "Tell me you didn't." I placed the receipt on the table in front of him. He looked at it, then at me. "You already started the treatment," he whispered. "You didn't just pay for it. You already started it." "Her first infusion is scheduled for this Friday," I said calmly. "At 9 a.m. in Portland." David's head snapped up. "Portland? Mom, Lily is here. How? When were you going to—" "I was going to tell you tonight," I said. "After dinner." "Before all this?" I gestured at the chaos around us, the scattered papers, the overturned chairs, the half-eaten dessert growing cold on the plates. "You were going to tell us you're taking our daughter across the country?" "Yes." "Without our permission?" I met his eyes. I was hoping I'd have it. David stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed a broken, desperate sound. "You're insane," he said. "You know that? You're absolutely insane." "Maybe." I leaned forward. "But I'm not giving up on her. The question is, are you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. David didn't answer. He just sat there staring at the receipt, his hands trembling. "Say something," I whispered. "What do you want me to say?" His voice was hollow. "That you're right? That I've been a coward? That I've let my wife convince me to let my daughter die? I want you to say you'll fight for her." He looked up at me, and I saw something break behind his eyes. "I don't know if I can." "David, you don't understand." He stood up, knocking his chair back again. "You think this is simple. You think it's just about money, about treatment, about hope, but it's not." "Then what is it about?" I demanded. "It's about watching her suffer." His voice cracked. It's about holding her at 3 in the morning while she cries because her bones hurt. It's about explaining to a 9-year-old why her body is attacking itself. It's about lying to her every single day and saying, "It's going to be okay," when I don't know if it will be. Emily was sobbing openly now. Ruth had returned from the kitchen with a bottle of whiskey and 3 glasses, but no one was drinking. "I'm tired, Mom," David said, and suddenly he looked ancient. "I'm so tired of fighting, of hoping, of pretending." "Then let me fight for you," I said quietly. "By taking her away from me? By giving her a chance to live?" He shook his head. Karen was right about one thing: the treatment could kill her faster than the disease. It could also save her. Or it could give her 3 months of hell before she dies anyway. He picked up one of the consent forms. "Look at this. Possible severe adverse reactions including cardiac arrest, seizures, internal bleeding, septic shock." "I've read it." "Then how can you ask me to do this to her?" His voice broke completely. "How can you ask me to put my little girl through that? Because the alternative is watching her die without trying. At least she'd die peacefully." "Peacefully?" I stood up now too, my hands flat on the table. "David, there is nothing peaceful about what's happening to her. Nothing. Her body is destroying itself from the inside out. She's in pain every single day, even if she doesn't show it. Even if she smiles for you and says she's fine." "Stop," he whispered. "No." I grabbed the medical file and opened it to a page I'd marked. "This is from her last blood panel, 2 weeks ago. Her white count is dropping. Her inflammation markers are through the roof. Her organs are starting to show stress." "Stop it." "She has lesions forming in her intestines. Her liver enzymes are elevated. Her kidneys are—" "Stop!" David slammed both hands on the table. The dishes jumped. Emily's wine glass tipped over, red spreading across the white tablecloth like blood. "She's running out of time," I said softly. "And you know it." David's face was wet with tears now. He wasn't even trying to hide them anymore. "I can't lose her," he whispered. "I can't." "Then don't." He looked at me, and for a moment I saw the little boy he used to be. The one who'd crawled into my bed after nightmares. The one who'd held my hand at his brother's funeral. "What if it doesn't work?" he asked. "What if we put her through all of this and she dies anyway?" "Then at least we tried," I said. "At least we gave her every chance. At least we can look her in the eye and say we fought for her until the very end." Emily stood up, wiping her face with her sleeve. "I think we should do it." David turned to her. "What?" "The treatment." Her voice was shaky but firm. "I think Mom's right. We have to try." "Emily, you don't understand what this means." "I understand that Lily is dying," Emily said. "I understand that sitting here doing nothing isn't working. And I understand that if we don't try this, we'll spend the rest of our lives wondering if we could have saved her." Ruth finally spoke, her voice rough. "Your mother's right, David. I've been sitting here listening, and she's right. You're so busy trying to protect Lily from suffering that you've forgotten to protect her from dying." "That's not fair," David said. "Life's not fair." Ruth shot back. "Your brother dying at 6 wasn't fair. Lily getting sick wasn't fair. But giving up? That's a choice. And it's the wrong one." David looked around the table at all of us. Then his eyes landed on the doorway to the living room, where Lily had been coloring earlier. "Does she know?" he asked quietly. "Does Lily know how sick she is?" I hesitated. "I don't know what you've told her." "We told her she has a condition, that she needs to take medicine and see doctors, but we didn't." His voice caught. "We didn't tell her it could kill her." "Maybe it's time she knew," I said gently. "She's 9 years old, and she deserves the truth." I stood up and walked around the table to him. "She deserves to know what's happening, to be part of the decision, to have a say in her own life." David's hands were shaking. I can't tell her." "Then I will." "Mom." But I was already walking toward the living room. Lily was still at the small table in the corner, her coloring book open in front of her. She'd drawn a picture of our family stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sundae. She'd even included a small dog, even though we didn't have one. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, sitting down in the chair next to her. She looked up and smiled. "Hi, Grandma. Why is everyone yelling?" My heart broke. "We're just having a discussion about grown-up things." "About me?" she asked, too smart for her own good. "Yes." She nodded like she'd expected that. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby, you're not in trouble." I reached over and took her small hand in mine. "But I need to talk to you about something important. Is that okay?" She set down her crayon. "Okay." Behind me, I heard footsteps. David, Emily, and Ruth had followed me into the living room. They stood in the doorway, watching. "You know how you've been feeling sick?" I said. "How your tummy hurts sometimes and you get really tired." Lily nodded. "Mommy says it's because I have a condition." "That's right, you do have a condition, and it's a serious one." I squeezed her hand gently. "But there's a treatment that might help you feel better. A really good treatment. The best doctors in the country think it could work." "Will it make me better?" she asked, her eyes wide. "It might, but it's not easy. You'd have to go to a hospital far away, and you'd have to get some medicine that might make you feel worse before you feel better." "Like shots?" "Sort of like shots, but bigger. And it would take a long time. Weeks, maybe months." Lily thought about this, her little face serious. "Would you come with me?" "Yes," I said immediately. "I would come with you." "And Daddy?" I looked back at David. He was frozen in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. "I don't know, sweetheart," I said honestly. "That's up to him." Lily turned to look at her father. "Daddy, would you come?" David's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Please," Lily said, "I don't want to be alone." And that did it. That was the thing that broke him completely. David crossed the room in 3 strides, dropped to his knees in front of his daughter, and wrapped his arms around her. "You won't be alone," he choked out. "I promise. You won't ever be alone." Lily hugged him back, her small arms around his neck. "So we're going to try the treatment?" David pulled back and looked at her. Really looked at her. At her pale skin, her thin arms, her eyes that were too old for 9 years. "Yes," he whispered, "we're going to try." Lily smiled. A real smile, bright and hopeful. "Good, because I'm not ready to die yet." The words hit like a physical blow. Emily let out a sob. Ruth turned away, her shoulders shaking. "How do you—" David started, but Lily cut him off. "I heard Mommy and Daddy talking," she said simply. "A few weeks ago, when you thought I was asleep, Mommy said I was going to die, that there was nothing we could do." "Lily," David's voice broke. "But Grandma says there is something we can do," Lily continued, looking at me with absolute trust. "Right, Grandma?" "Right," I said, my own voice thick with tears. "Then let's do it." She picked up her crayon and went back to coloring, like she'd just decided what to have for dinner instead of whether to fight for her life. David stood up slowly. He looked at me, then at Emily, then at Ruth. "We're going to Portland," he said. "All of us. And we're going to save my daughter." He walked back to the dining room and picked up his phone. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Calling Karen," he said, his voice hard. "She needs to know that if she's not with us on this, she's against us. And if she's against us—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. He dialed, put the phone to his ear, waited. "Karen," he said when she answered. "We need to talk, and you need to listen, because I'm only saying this once." 3 weeks later, I was holding Lily's hand in a hospital room, 2,000 miles from home. The morning light came through the window in stripes gold and white across the blue blanket, across her sleeping face, across the IV line taped to her small arm. She'd made it through the first round of treatment. Barely. The first week had been hell. Fever, nausea, pain that made her scream. I'd held her hair back while she vomited. I'd sung her lullabies at 3 a.m. when she couldn't sleep. I'd watched her cry and beg us to stop, to take her home, to make it end. And every single time, I'd wanted to. God, I'd wanted to. But David had been there too, standing on the other side of her bed, holding her other hand, whispering that she was strong, that she was brave, that she could do this. Emily had flown out for the 2nd week. She'd brought Lily's favorite stuffed animals, her coloring books, a tablet loaded with movies. She'd sat with us in the tiny hospital room and read stories until her voice gave out. Even Ruth had come, just for 2 days, but it was enough. She'd brought homemade cookies, Lily's favorite, chocolate chip with extra chips, and had sat with me in the cafeteria when I needed to cry where Lily couldn't see me. Karen hadn't come at all. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up carefully, trying not to wake Lily. 47 missed calls from David's number, 12 voicemails, 33 text messages. I'd stopped answering 2 days ago. The phone buzzed again. Another call. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text came through. "Mom, please, we need to talk about what happens next." I set the phone face down and looked back at Lily. Her color was better today. The fever had finally broken last night. The doctors said her numbers were improving, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to hope. There was a soft knock on the door. I turned, expecting a nurse. It was David. He looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it, which he probably had. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi." He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. "I've been calling." "I know. You haven't answered." "I know that too." He pulled a chair up next to mine and sat down, both of us looking at Lily instead of each other. "How is she?" he asked. "Better. The fever broke. She ate breakfast, half a piece of toast, but it's more than yesterday." "That's good." He was silent for a moment. "The doctors called me, gave me the update. I figured they would. They said the treatment is working, that her markers are responding." His voice cracked slightly. "They said she might actually make it." "She will make it," I said firmly. David nodded, but I could see the fear still in his eyes. The doubt. The part of him that had spent so long preparing for the worst that he couldn't quite believe in the best. "Karen wants to talk," he said finally. I stiffened. "About what?" "About Lily. About us. About everything." He rubbed his face with both hands. "She showed up at the house yesterday, with her lawyer." My stomach dropped. "Her lawyer?" "She wants custody. Says I'm an unfit father for allowing experimental treatment without proper authorization. Says you manipulated me. Says—" He stopped, his jaw clenched. "Says a lot of things." "Can she do that?" "I don't know. Maybe." He looked at me, and his eyes were red. "She also filed a police report. Said you kidnapped Lily." The words hit me like ice water. "What?" "She told them you took Lily across state lines without parental permission, that you coerced me into letting you, that you're mentally unstable and dangerous." I couldn't breathe. "David." "I told them the truth," he said quickly. "I told them I gave you permission, that I'm here, that I've been part of this the whole time, that she's lying." He paused. "But they still want to talk to you, and they want to see Lily." "No." The word came out hard and flat. "No one is taking her out of this hospital. No one is disrupting her treatment. I don't care what Karen says." "I know." I told them that too. David leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "Mom, I'm so sorry. For all of this. For not believing you. For listening to Karen. For almost—" his voice broke. "For almost letting her die." "You didn't know," I said softly. "I should have known. I'm her father. I should have fought harder. Should have questioned more. Should have doesn't matter now." I cut him off. "What matters is that you're here, that you chose her, that you're fighting for her now." He looked up at me, tears on his face. "What if it's too late? What if Karen wins? What if they take her away and stop the treatment?" "They won't." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." I reached into my bag on the floor and pulled out a folder, different from the others. This one was newer, thicker, bound with a rubber band. David stared at it. "What is that?" "Insurance," I said simply. I opened the folder. Inside were documents, legal documents, notarized and signed. "Power of attorney," I said, sliding the first one toward him. "You signed it 3 weeks ago, before we left. Gives me medical decision-making authority for Lily in case of emergency." "I remember." David said slowly. And this, I pulled out another document, is a court order, emergency guardianship, granted by a judge in Oregon, based on the medical evidence and testimony from Lily's doctors here. David's eyes widened. When did you? Last week, when Karen started making threats. I met his gaze. I told you, David. I'm not letting anyone take her away from this treatment. Not Karen. Not the police. Not anyone. Mom, if you did this without proper authorization, you could go to jail. Then I'll go to jail, I said simply, after she's better. David stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed a broken, desperate sound. You're insane, you know that? You've said that before. I mean it this time. But he was smiling through his tears. You risked everything. Your money, your freedom, your relationship with all of us. She's my granddaughter, I said. What else was I supposed to do? Before he could answer, Lily stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then landing on David. Daddy? Her voice was hoarse from the breathing tube they'd had in 2 days ago. Hey, baby girl. David was at her side in an instant, his hand on her forehead. How are you feeling? Tired, she whispered. But better. The nice nurse said I'm doing good. You're doing great, David said, his voice thick. So great. Lily's eyes found mine. Grandma, are you okay? You look sad. I'm not sad, sweetheart. I'm happy. So happy you're feeling better. Is Mommy coming? Lily asked. David and I exchanged glances. I don't know, baby, David said carefully. She's having a hard time right now. Because she didn't want me to do the treatment? The question hung in the air like broken glass. You heard that? David asked quietly. I hear a lot of things, Lily said. Grown-ups think kids don't listen, but we do. David's face crumpled. Lily, I'm so sorry. It's okay, Daddy. She reached up with her free hand and touched his cheek. You changed your mind. That's what matters. How are you so brave? David whispered. Because you and Grandma are here, Lily said simply. And because I'm not ready to die yet, remember? David pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of the IV lines and monitors. I remember. My phone buzzed again. Another text. This one wasn't from David's number. It was from Ruth. Just wired $30,000 to the treatment center. Finish what you started. Don't let them stop you. I stared at the message, my eyes burning. Ruth had been quiet through all of this, had barely spoken, barely reacted. I thought maybe she disagreed with me. Maybe she thought I was wrong. But she'd been saving, planning, waiting for the moment when I'd need her. Another text came through. That girl deserves to live. And you deserve to be the hero of this story. Not the villain they're trying to make you. I typed back, thank you. Her response was immediate. Don't thank me. Just save her. There was a knock on the door. A real one this time. Louder. More official. Dr. Chen walked in, clipboard in hand. She smiled when she saw Lily awake. Well, look who's up, she said warmly. How's my favorite patient? Tired, Lily said. But better. I can see that. Dr. Chen checked the monitors, made notes on her clipboard. Then she turned to David and me. Can I speak with you both outside for a moment? My heart stopped. Is something wrong? No, Dr. Chen said quickly. Actually, it's good news, but I'd like to discuss it privately. David kissed Lily's forehead. We'll be right back, baby. Okay, Daddy. We followed Dr. Chen into the hallway. She closed the door behind us and turned to face us with a smile I hadn't seen before. Her numbers are improving faster than we expected, she said, significantly faster. The treatment is taking hold. Her white count is up, inflammation is down, and the lesions are starting to heal. What does that mean? David asked, his voice shaking. It means she's responding, really responding. Dr. Chen's smile widened. If she continues like this, we might be looking at remission within 6 months, maybe sooner. I felt my knees go weak. David grabbed my arm to steady me. Remission? I whispered. It's early, Dr. Chen cautioned, and we have a long way to go. But yes, remission is now a real possibility. David made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. He turned and wrapped his arms around me, and I held him while he cried. "Thank you," he kept saying. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "Don't thank me," I said, echoing Ruth's words. "Thank her. She's the one fighting." Dr. Chen gave us a moment, then cleared her throat gently. "There's one more thing. The police were here earlier, asking about Lily, about the treatment, about the custody situation." My stomach dropped again. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. That Lily is here under proper medical authorization, that her father has been involved in every decision, that the treatment is working and that removing her now could be fatal." "Doctor." Chen's expression hardened. "I also told them that if they try to interfere with my patient's care, I'll have hospital security remove them. And I'll file complaints with every regulatory body I can think of." "Thank you," David said hoarsely. "I don't let politics interfere with medicine," Dr. Chen said simply. "That little girl deserves every chance to live, and I'll make sure she gets it." She left us in the hallway. David and I stood there for a long moment, not speaking, just breathing, just being. "We're going to make it," he finally said. "Aren't we?" "Yes," I said, "we are." We walked back into the room together. Lily was drawing on a piece of paper the nurse had given her another family portrait. This one showed all of us standing outside a hospital with a rainbow overhead. "Look, Grandma," she said, holding it up. "I drew us winning." I took the picture with shaking hands. "Yes, baby, you did." My phone buzzed one more time. I almost didn't look, but something made me. It was a text from Karen. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. Can I see her, please?" I showed David. He read it, his jaw tight. "What do you want to do?" I asked. He thought for a long moment. Then he took my phone and typed a response. "When you're ready to fight for her instead of against us, call me. Until then, stay away." He handed the phone back to me and sat down next to Lily's bed. "Tell me about your rainbow," he said gently. And Lily, my brave, beautiful granddaughter, smiled and began to explain. Outside the window, the sun climbed higher. A new day, a new chance, a new life. I never did answer Karen's text. But 6 months later, when Lily rang the bell in the hospital lobby, the one they let you ring when you complete treatment, when you're in remission, when you've won, Karen was there. Standing in the back, crying, alone. Lily saw her. And after a moment's hesitation, she ran to her mother and hugged her anyway. Because that's who Lily is, brave enough to fight, strong enough to forgive. She got that from her father. And maybe just a little bit from me.